You and I might have something in common if I read this right. You're not a morning person?
No,
Me neither. I finally found a damn coach
no,
who's not a morning person, man.
I hate it. I
I hate
hate
them.
it.
Come
I
on, yes.
hate
But is
it.
Dan Campbell the worst enemy of a morning person?
Oh yeah, his locker was right across from me in Miami.
Yeah.
So like we'd kind of come in at the same time, and Dan's Dan. He's charged up, ready to go from the jump. As soon as he walks in the building, and he would look over me. Don't talk to Lou. It's not past 8 o'clock. You can't even talk to him. Just busting my chops from the jump.
Bengals fans, what's up? Listen, big fan of your team. You guys, every September, you fool the fuck out of me. But I love Joe and obviously love the offense. One of my favorite things about your team, though, is the defense. And I think Lou Anarumo has done a fantastic job. I know Trey a little bit. I know Sam a little bit, personally. Uh, and I think the other guys are great. BJ Hill, DJ Reader, those guys are studs. So I love watching the defensive line. I can't wait to talk about Lou about that stuff. But really, the whole defense. There's a lot of really good players on this defense. And I guess my question for you guys would be, and I asked this to Detroit fans like a week ago, and they blew up the comments. So I think it might be a good question to ask y'all. You might have more options than Detroit. Like. No offense to my guys in Detroit. Some of them were putting my guy, Dan Orlovsky, in the suite. Anyways, here's the question. You get the biggest Bengals game you can imagine. You fall into some like walking around money, and you buy a suite. You can put 5 all-time Bengals in there. They don't have to be the best players, but maybe great players that would be a really good time. Or just however you want to populate this suite. Who's it going to be? Cincinnati Bengals all time. You get 5 of them. They'll be up in the suite drinking beers with you. You have a vegetable tray and shit. It'll be a good setup. Who's it going to be? Good luck the rest of the year to you Bengals fans. Love watching your team. Enjoy this interview with Lou Anarumo. I certainly did. All right, this is a treat. One of my favorite coaches in the game. One of my favorite defenses to watch. Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, joins us now. And, Coach, how are you?
Doing great. I really appreciate you having me, Chris.
Of course. My first question, this comes from somebody else. Maybe you can guess who it might be. Best lean on an edge rusher you ever coached at Purdue?
Ryan Kerrigan.
No, it came, this is great. It came from Rob Ninkovich.
Oh, okay.
What a backfire for Rob.
And I love Rob, but now that I think about it, not even close. Because when the first time I saw Rob go around those hoops, I'm like, okay, we got us one.
You got it. Well, you got it.
Because Ryan, as great as Ryan was, a little bit stiff.
Yeah.
Rob, not so much. So
Rob, he'll tell you. He's bendy. He'll be the first to tell you. So
no doubt.
When I texted Rob for intel on you, he was like, "No, I'm not going to give you any intel. You got to ask him this question." So
yeah, I blew that
one. That's him though. Ryan Kerrigan was a damn good one, man. I liked watching him play too. But Coach, before I get into y'all's guys, it's a hell of a week to have the Texans, right? Because of what they did last week. You know how that goes. You get in the film room. What's the first thing you're saying without telling me too much about what impresses you about C.J. Stroud?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it to the defense this morning, the first time we got together, and just how he's poised. He's seeing the field really well. Everybody can see that the guy is big, strong, has a good arm, accurate, can run. But when you really get down and start watching the tape, you really see that this guy does see the whole field, makes really good decisions. And that shows by only 1 interception on the season so far. So I'm really impressed with for a rookie to play as poised as he has and seem like he has full control of the offense. That's a great job by him and the staff for sure.
Yeah, I mean, should be a great game. You've got one of the best defensive lines in the league. I think when it comes to the run and the pass and just being versatile. Can you speak to you call these guys the core 4, Hill and Reader inside, Trey, Sam outside. What do you look for? What do you value in a guy in your defensive front?
I just think, we've got so many guys that can do so many things, and it's kind of rare these days. People just will ask about, let's take DJ Reader, for instance. Like, well, why would you sign just a nose guard? And I said, well, there's your first mistake. He's not just a nose guard. He's not a two down player. DJ can play all three downs. He can play zero nose. He can play three technique. He can be out there as a five if we really needed him to be, because he's such a great athlete, understands the game, strong, powerful. So, I mean, to me, the more that a guy can do, and how many times have you heard that in your career? But it's the truth. So, guys that can play three downs to us are just invaluable.
Yeah, and they're all versatile. I think, jumping around on these guys a little bit, the thing I love about Sam is he kind of reminds me of a throwback left end
Hmm.
who can really play in different alignments. I mean, he's a gap sound guy. He can make the negative plays in the backfield, but I feel like you got to trust him in the run game because he can move up and down the line. You probably stick him in a 4, you can stick him in a 6. He can play the edge. Do you see that versatility with Sam?
Oh, 100%. I don't, if, we kind of laugh sometimes and we look at some of the things that people try to do. Well, why would you do that over there?
Yeah.
To him. And, he's just so sound, so fundamentally and technique sound, especially in the run game. And his pass rush has improved over the years for sure. And, you saw it really in the game sealing sack against Seattle, him and BJ working together. And they had the same stunt this past Sunday night on a backed up third down to get us the ball back in good field position. Same stunt, little TE game. And they just executed so well. And that can look very different if it's maybe a younger guy doing it with an older guy, or two young that don't have that great feel for it, and then BJ and Sam do for sure.
They have a great feel, and you mentioned the Seattle game. I got charged up because, as a former defensive lineman, those are those games you remember. I thought those guys took that game over. How psyched were you on the sideline?
It was amazing, and I go back to, okay, they get the ball, good field position, and there's only a few minutes left, and we had just come off of a pretty quick drive on offense, and I looked at them on the bench, and they were kind of tired. And I walked over to him. I said, all right, there's nobody else going out there except you four. And that's who I want to close this game out. And they just stood up. Yes, sir. And here we go. But that just tells you about who they are. Nobody flinched. Nobody, they didn't blink at all. And they just went out there and did what they had to do.
Do you get the sense that Trey doesn't get talked about enough? Not that that's what's important in the building, but I feel like outside your building, people probably don't realize how elite Trey has been. When you look at the numbers, you look at his handwork, the way he shows up, he's right there with all those other guys that we talk about on ESPN every day, but he doesn't get that kind of recognition.
100%. I say it all the time. He'd be leading the league in sacks. I think he's had 3 or 4 called back because of penalties this year.
Yeah.
Not on him, and you know how that goes
The
sometimes.
worst.
But yeah, he missed one Sunday night by a half a yard. So he is always around the quarterback. He's virtually you guarantee him getting the quarterback off the spot a number of times, and then 1 or 2 sacks a game. He's just that guy. Trust me, everybody in this building knows how valuable he is, and he is a true pass rusher. He's great, and oh, by the way, he does a great job in the run game too.
He does. He really does. And his handwork. Yeah, I mean, I remember him coming up to me after a game when he was in New Orleans. I was like, "Who is this kid?" Because I hadn't, Florida Atlantic or wherever he came from, and
Yep.
not a highly touted guy. Wearing 91, we had a good 5-minute conversation. He's like, "Let me get your jersey." I was like, I better get this kid's jersey just in case. And it turned out to be one of the best players on my wall. So it's been fun watching him work. He's a true technician. How about Logan Wilson? Because I feel like linebacker in general is kind of a forgotten piece that people don't value as much. But a guy like him who can really cover. I mean, you look at that Rams game, the plays that he made at such a pivotal point in the year for you guys. What kind of value does that add, having a guy in the second level that can cover the way he covers?
Well, and again, I'll go back to what I said about the guys up front. Logan's another 3-down Mike. How many of those are running around our league these days?
How
And
many?
he can do it all, and we don't have to substitute. He has the green dot, and I think between him and Jermaine, I just looking at a stat the other day. I think between the two of them, they've got, I believe it's 18 interceptions, and the next closest pair of linebackers in the league has 8, I think, over the same span of time. So Logan is elite in so many things that he does, and it starts with just being in front of the huddle and communicating to the guys, and on the sideline with myself and Jermaine and Betch, our linebacker guy. They're high level conversations, that those guys are always trying to be problem solvers, always trying to be forward thinkers, and hey, here's how we're going to fix this. What if they do that? It's like having two more coaches. It's unbelievable.
Well, I know you've talked about this before, but you like to be on the sideline, right?
Yes.
Is that how rare is that for a coordinator? I haven't done the math on that, like how many dudes are on the sideline and how many are in the booth. How rare is it, and then how much do you have to trust the guy upstairs? I bet you got one guy that you're like, hey, I trust that guy. He's the eye in the sky, but it's a value to be on the field.
Yeah, it's funny. If you would have asked me probably 10 or 15 years ago, I would have said, there's no doubt I want to be in the box. I want to see the game. But then as you learn and you evolve as a coach, I think it's so important for me to go, as I always do, from group to group on the sideline and look at them in the eye and say, this is what we need to do. Not, hey, send this guy to the player phone, send that guy to the player phone. To me, somewhere it gets lost in the translation, because I think body language, certain points of the game, they need to hear it from me. And they need to know, hey, this is a critical situation, or whatever the particular deal is. They got to see it from me, and they got to read what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling about a certain thing more than anything. So I've shifted on that over the years. And, we have a great guy that does the personnel upstairs. Rob Livingston does that for us. And, that's critical, because I know now I'm thinking what the call is going to be and how it's going to go. So yeah, that's, I think it's critical for me to be down there.
You guys seem to make really good adjustments throughout the course of the game, but also at half. And I wonder, as football fans and as players, because shoot, we got in there, I was chugging Gatorade and having a snack. You guys are back in the shower with a whiteboard or wherever you are.
Yeah.
Is that an overrated turn, at the half? Like, you guys are making those adjustments as the game goes, but take me through mechanically how that goes for football fans out there, because I think we just assume you come in and you're like, hey, guys, this is it. And there's been those adjustments being made all through a half, I assume.
Yeah, you know how it goes as a player, and it's not like we're waiting to halftime to change something. There may be something big that we say, hey, let's just wait if we're closer to the half to talk about it. But again, as you know, as a former player, there's not a lot of time at halftime. So we'll come in, we'll be brief, we'll show them the run game, the pass game that are issues, and say, all right, here's maybe the change that we're going to. It's a little bit more how we have it set up. Like, I'll have some things in my back pocket that we keep for the second half sometimes, and the players know that. And I think that keeps maybe the offense off balance too, that, hey, they didn't do this in the first half, and, treat it more like you're on offense. Hey, we haven't run this play yet, against the defense. Well, same thing on defense. Hey, we haven't called this yet, and we're saving it for this particular situation.
You guys seem to be really multiple. I mean, I know you're multiple, very versatile. You probably pride yourself in that, because all the guys we're talking about are versatile guys. The safety deal, for me, looking at it, I mean, Logan's got the green dot, there's all that, but that's such an important pairing back there, and I thought those guys had been great for you over the years.
Yeah.
Making that switch this year and having to work new guys in there, how did you come about that decision, and was that one that you knew was going to take a little bit just to get the reps out there with new guys in center field?
Yeah, for sure. I've always made the comparison that two good safeties are like having a great second baseman and shortstop combination. When they turn two, he just flips the ball. The other guy,
right.
He trusts that the other guy's going to be there. It's the same thing with safeties. I mean, and all the high level pass offs that they have to have, and halves and quarters and all those different things. So we knew it was going to take some time. Dax Hill was in our building last year, so we got a chance to learn from Jesse and Vaughn and see things, how it goes. But, Nick Scott, we got in free agency, and Jordan Battle in the draft. And it's just been a work in progress, and those guys seem to be settling in now as we're almost halfway through the season.
What's when you're like, okay, we're looking at Dax Hill, we know he's freakish, he's explosive, but what are the big pluses with him from a skill set standpoint that you think maybe people don't realize?
Well, he's taken two jobs for us. Really, he's handling Jesse Bates' role that we've given, that Jesse had here. And he's also in we had Trey Flowers, who on third down would cover tight ends for us, a big, long corner.
Right.
And now Dax has done that, and he's a really good blitzer. So he's a valuable piece to our defense. His athleticism is, off the charts. Big, strong kid who can really run, but he's picked up things and is starting to understand hey, here's why I'm calling this. Here's the why of the defense, not just here's what I'm supposed to do. And it takes young guys a little bit longer, but he's starting to pick it up.
Yeah, you mentioned Dax and like development, and some people are like, oh, I want to see him out there last year more or whatever. But there's a process, and I know with Miles Murphy, there's some excitement around this kid. But I've been a young defensive line in the league, expected a lot of, not on as good a defense as y'all's. How much of a luxury is that for him to not have to rush? And like for people at home, they're like, we haven't seen this guy a lot. Is that a bad sign? Like maybe help people understand.
Yeah, so I paint the picture. It's the same exact conversations we had last year with Dax. He was a first round pick who was getting limited snaps in a particular role because he had two really good players in front of him, and it's the same thing with Miles. There's Trey and Sam are as two high level players as there are in the league. So it's a luxury for not only us but for him, as you mentioned, as a young player. To kind of get in there, get your toe, stick your toe in the water, kind of get a feel for it, and then if somebody does get injured now, hey, I'm kind of feeling more comfortable about it and I can be ready to go, as opposed to be just thrown in there and, literally taking your lumps, in a really, really physical division that we play in. So I think the fact that we have those two guys in front really helps him and will help his development in the long run, just like it did help Dax this year.
It's got to be the most physical division you've ever coached in, right?
Unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable.
Like, and the amount of skill and physicality with the Ravens. I mean, I've heard you talk about resource allocation. Is there anybody that makes it harder to allocate resources than Lamar Jackson, the way he's playing right now, and the way that offense has taken a turn? And I think it's even scarier because of the RPO stuff and some of the issues that they cause for linebackers, especially. Is there anybody that you've ever seen that's made it harder to allocate resources?
It's very, very difficult. I've always said it. Anytime you step on the field with Lamar and the Ravens, he's probably the best athlete on the field. So let's
Right.
start with that, and then you got to have somebody that can, a lot of guys that can chase him down and tackle him and just, plain old, I'm better than you football and just running around. He's such a great athlete. And now he's always been able to throw the ball well, for sure. We've never underestimated that part of his game. But now, as you said, they're kind of putting it all together, and they're big and physical as a team, as you have to be in this division, as I said. And they certainly create their challenges, and you can see, why they're doing what they're doing. But yeah, and the great news is we got them on a short week next week, so I can't wait.
Yeah, that never hurts.
Yeah, thanks
It's
a
gonna be a
lot.
great game. Coach, like watching the other defensive players, it's not only a physical division in general, but they got great defensive players. Like take your pick, whether it's Miles or TJ or Highsmith and the back end guys. You go all day. Roquan. I mean, like there's a ton of great ball players. Maybe not the best player, but who do you enjoy watching the most when you get the cut ups and you've got to go through film and the AFC North is on tape?
Yeah, as you mentioned, you can go through each team and pick out a guy or two, and I've always been a fan of the back end just because that's where I started, and you could watch a guy like Minker at the Steelers, or you can watch some of how they cover it in Cleveland, and get some things, and they've got some. Denzel Ward has been really elite this year, I think, in what he does. But we got some pretty darn good guys too, and that's the beauty of it. But as you mentioned, there's good players, elite players on either side of the ball in our division. And that's what makes it so hard.
One of the things we talk about when the Bengals get ready to play somebody offensively is like, man, if you can't cover their third guy, if your third corner, if your third guy in the secondary is having a hard time, like you're going to have a hard day against the Bengals. So how much does it help you guys? And for those guys that may not be called upon to cover a guy like Boyd on a regular basis, how much does it help you in practice to have to see those guys?
Oh, it's great. And it's really in the spring and training camp where you're going through it and you're matching up on those guys daily. We're fortunate to add DJ Turner to the group, and you got Cam, you got Cheeto, you got DJ, you got really Dax played a whole game for us at nickel last year against Tampa Bay. So he's almost a fourth kind of hybrid guy that can go in there in a pinch. So we're fortunate that way that we feel like we got some pretty good matchups.
Speaking of the offense, I've been in buildings before where the quarterback and the DC, you might never think they'd actually have a cup of coffee together or, shoot the shit on the bus. But do you have some sort of relationship with Joe where you can compare notes? Because I feel like I used to hang out with an offensive line coach, Stout in Philly. I'd sit there with him and watch tape sometimes, or whoever was, Coach Boo in St. Louis. Those are cool relationships. Do you have one with Joe, and has it been valuable to both of you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll ask him, hey, take a look at this. What did you see? Especially again going back to OTA's training camp, but even now when the scout team's going, I'll tell, hey, take a look at this pressure. Did you see it? Did it disguise well, or are you dropping out too soon? And he'll be able to give me some feedback. If I have hey, keep an eye out for this week when you're playing, certain teams that I may have a pretty good idea. Zach and Brian, those guys do a great job. But from my end, if there's one more thing I can tell them, hey, I remember studying this kid in the draft, a DB, make sure, he won't be able to battle T on a deep ball or Jamar or one of those things, So it's funny you asked, because I just had about a 10-minute conversation with Joe before while the special teams was going during our walkthrough, and we were just talking about a few things, and he actually helped me on something, so it was good.
Man, that's awesome. He seems like just the best. Great teammate, the whole thing. Here's the question I think everybody wants to know is, are y'all just really good at playing possum in September? Because, you guys are like the possum champions of the world. No. And I know that a lot has to do with Zach probably having a process and you having a process, and you guys know better than we do. Us idiots on the couch, we're like, oh, they're doing it again. Are they going to turn it around? And you guys always do. There's no panic, I assume, because you guys have been through it. And does it speak to Zach's process?
Well, 100%. I don't think, we'd be lying if we said we obviously don't want to start that way. But, there's been, circumstances out of our control and things happen. But to your point, I still can hear Zach getting up in front of the team saying, hey, we've been here. We've done this a few times now. Nobody is panicked. There is no panic in the room. And like I said to the defense Saturday before the game, this past game, and I said, it's never about anybody else. It's always about us. It's always about our mindset. We're going to play elite players, elite teams. It doesn't matter. As long as we show up with the right mindset, do what we're supposed to do, we'll be fine. If we can keep that approach all the way through, it just helps you be more consistent. It helps you not to be up and down as the season goes, and just worry about ourselves and take care of our business, and we'll be fine.
Last question for you, Coach. I got to ask a Dan Campbell question, because
my guy.
I just, like everybody else, I love the dude from a distance. It's been fun to watch. You and I might have something in common if I read this right. You're not a morning person?
No.
Me neither. I finally found a damn coach who's not a morning person, man.
I hate it. I hate it.
Come on, yes. But is Dan Campbell the worst enemy of a morning person?
Oh, yeah. I told this story on one of the podcasts I did. And, his locker was right across from me in Miami.
Yeah.
So, we'd kind of come in at the same time. And, Dan's Dan. He's charged up, ready to go from the jump as soon as he walks in the building. And he would look over me, don't talk to Lou. It's not past 8 o'clock. Can't even talk to him, just busting my chops from the jump.
Yeah.
And, I'd throw something at him or something. But no, I love him to death, and we're still, good friends today. And I'm so happy for all this success there at Detroit.
That's awesome. Yeah. Coach Lou Anarumo, one of the best in the game. Love watching your defense. Keep up the great work. And tell that core four I said, keep getting after it, man. I love those guys.
Will do, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, take it easy, Coach.
Bye-bye.